Hello and welcome to Marvel Vision, a Marvel Studios TV show podcast brought to you by Cinema Sangha. My name is Devin Faraci. I am one of the hosts of the program. Joining me as he traditionally does.
My name is Derek Faraci, and I don't care if you're Gerald Ford. I'm not taking off my bra. How are you, Devin?
Oh, so you did watch more of A Man on the Inside.
I did. I watched the entire season.
Oh, wow. You liked it after all.
Eh.
You've watched more than I have.
It's fine. It runs into the consistent problem I have with sitcoms today, where they're like, this isn't actually very funny. This is very serious. And then there's 3 episodes in a row where I'm like, why are you making me cry, sitcom?
Well, that's Mike Schur, man. That's what he's going to do.
But that's not what they did on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's not what they did on The Good Place.
He did have some Good Place episodes like that. He's doing with an 8-episode season what he had to do in a 22-episode season with those shows, or a 16-episode season. So he's jamming it in a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny. I'm enjoying it. I'm almost done with it. So that's the show on Netflix, A Man on the Inside. Ted Danson goes undercover in an old folks home.
Yes.
He's really funny.
He is. He's very funny.
And he's playing a different kind of character than Ted Danson usually plays, which is nice.
Yeah, I guess he is.
So
he's very similar to the character he played on Mr. Mayor, which is actually an extremely similar plot line where
he's undercover in a
his wife dies. He's a widower, so he decides to run for mayor so he has something to do and becomes mayor. So it's kind of a similar format for him.
If you listen to our Watchmen that's up right now for Bloodshot, you'll know that I was very tired. Guess what? I'm very tired today, too. My continued problem with sleeping was still going on last night. Woke up this morning, was supposed to go meet somebody, but they had to cancel. So that means I went right back to bed. And I didn't have any coffee 2 days in a row because I'm trying to go to sleep. So I'm like, let me just lay off the coffee. Yesterday, it did not impact me. Today, as you hear me yawning, also, I have a headache like you wouldn't believe. So I'm suffering right now. I'm suffering for this podcast because I don't want to keep waking up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, man. It makes me feel real bad. Yeah. Real bad, And, you're asking me why the YouTube video wasn't up. It's partially because I woke up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon today because I couldn't fall asleep again until 5 and I was in bad pain all night.
I don't know if you can blame this on the YouTube video not being up when it's a week late.
Well, yeah, there's a lot, Anyway, so if I'm especially low energy today, if I'm like Jeb Bush, low energy Jeb Bush over here, I apologize in advance. But I'm trying.
Hey, this is the free podcast. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do is you get what you paid for, buddy. Exactly. Oh my God. We do have the Bloodshot episode up right now on our Watchmen podcast. That's available only to $5 and above subscribers at www.patreon.com/Cinema Sangha, SANGHA. And every month we talk about a superhero movie and go in depth. This one is Bloodshot, the 2020 Vin Diesel movie that began the Valiant cinematic universe that has swept all of the box office and the awards in the years since. And next month we're doing Captain America, Brave New World, which finds Sam Wilson taking the mantle of Captain America, which is why this episode of Marvel Vision, we're going to be reading the first appearance of the Falcon, Sam Wilson, which was very surprising to me, by the way.
Yeah, it was weird.
Did not expect it to play out that way.
No. No.
I'm very shocked. Anyway, how's life over there?
It's cold. It's very cold.
I saw you putting the temperatures up for the week. It looks pretty miserable.
Yeah, they've sent out warnings here, and they're like, "Hey, keep your water running."
Oh wow.
Keep your cabinets open.
Wow.
So that your heat gets into where the pipes are, because it's going to be real cold, and those pipes are going to freeze. Then pipes will freeze.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
We do not have that problem. In fact, we are told not to run our water here.
Yes.
We don't have enough water, traditionally.
Well, here we got water aplenty.
Plenty of H2O.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, stay warm. How warm is it in your place right now?
It's about 70 degrees.
Oh, so you're living the life then in that case.
Oh, I keep it tight.
You have that big balcony window.
Yeah.
Does that get really cold?
Yes.
Do you have a curtain in front of it that like cuts the cold, or
I have the blinds in front of it, but that's it. But
Yeah, so you don't have a
No,
curtain there.
no.
So when your couch is right in front of that, so you back of your head must
I mean,
get
my
cold.
couch is like 5 feet away from it, 4 or 5 feet. There's enough
Yeah,
space.
so that you feel like the cold dissipates.
Yeah, I don't feel cold sitting on my couch,
All right,
so I feel okay.
good deal. Good
Yeah.
deal. Good deal.
Plus, I've always got like a billion beanies everywhere. I got beanies and hats everywhere.
The be the man of many beanies.
Well, I got two beanies. To be honest, I have two,
Oh, the man of
Uh,
two beanies.
and then I've got like 7 hats or something. So I've always got things for the top of my head.
The
And
thing
I've got hoodies. You
I was
know,
supposed to go this morning to the Bob's Big Boy in Burbank. That was what we were supposed to do this morning.
say goodbye to David Lynch.
See the David Lynch Memorial that has popped up there. But my friend had to cancel, and so I did not go. I might go tomorrow, maybe,
Yeah.
to sort of see it, to see what people are leaving there. It's kind of cool. It's cool that that's happened. I've eaten at that Bob Big Boy a bunch, and I have never seen David Lynch at it.
No.
No, never was there at the same time as David Lynch.
Well.
But ate there quite a bit. When I first met Brittany, she was living quite close to
Okay.
that Bob's Big Boy. And I like Bob's Big Boy. I'm a Bob's
Bob's
Big
Big
Boy
Boy is
guy.
good.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah.
So it's a good place. That's a place that I used to also go when I drank. That was a good late night place to go eat, to soak
Yeah.
up the booze. Yeah, very strong there. I did not. Bob's Big Boy also has classic car shows in the parking lot.
Do they?
Yeah,
I did not know
I've
that.
never been to that, but I've seen the photos. Yeah, it's like a bunch of guys. Oh my God, this actually reminds me. My favorite dude right now on social media is a guy named Tony the Greaser.
Okay.
And Tony the Greaser is like 23 years old, and he's a greaser, like from the 1950s. And so he wears all the clothes and he makes videos about how to use pomade. And he's like really awkward and weird. And he also makes videos about the oppression of greasers. And it's like, if you want to be a greaser,
I'm
you're going
sorry.
to.
Hold on. What?
I know, it's incredible.
The oppression of greasers?
He's
Is
like,
this a thing?
if you want to be
There
a
are
grease
enough
ball,
greasers to oppress.
well, that's the beauty of it. So if you want to be a greaser, you're going to have to get used to people saying things like grease ball. You calling you riffraff. I'm like, people call you riffraff, Tony. I don't think they do. I don't think they do. And then he made another.
Is he like hanging out at like old age homes?
It's what it feels like, right? It's so great. He's a character in Man on the Inside.
Yeah.
But
It's like that Always Sunny episode where they want to form a gang and
Frank only
is
knows
like, I'll get
gangs.
my old gang together, and they're
Yeah.
all just like singing and stuff. They do doo-wop. Yeah.
Well, another really good Tony the Greaser video is he goes to the record store and he's looking at vinyl, and there's like a voiceover of like, oh, you're a poser, you're a fake, you only look at the really popular stuff, at the really well-known stuff. And then it ends with Tony standing against the wall, slouching like a cool greaser guy. And he's got like records like on display on his wall, and it's like Elvis and stuff like that. And he goes, well, the reason why these were the most popular albums of the 1950s is because they're the best music ever made. So I'm not ashamed that I like the best music ever made. And it's really funny and it's really sweet. And he does like a lot of TikTok stuff, like TikTok fads or whatever, but he's not good at it, which fits for a guy who's from the 1950s, right? It just fits.
Sure.
And it's all very charming and very bad. And he's got a cute little girlfriend who wears like poodle skirts and stuff like that. So they're living their own little time warp life somewhere. And I thought of him because he also goes to classic car shows and films content at classic car shows because he's like really loves. He also has a cherry red T-Bird, and he recently got as a gift. You know how in the back of classic cars they have like the name of the car like written in a script, and he got one of those that says Tony the Greaser, and he's like, should I put it on my beautiful T-Bird or is that a sin? And he's like, I'll leave it up to you guys out there. I'll leave it up to you cats out there is actually what he says. He says, hey, cats and kittens. You got to check out Tony the Greaser. I love him. He's great.
I will
He's
not.
a delight.
I don't watch any of those things. I'm not a TikTok guy. It's not my deal.
I mean,
It's not my style.
I'm just looking.
I saw the other day somebody talking about there needs to be space for like teens to go to online,
Yeah.
like there used to be. I was like, yeah. Every time they create one, everyone who's like 30 and above jumps into it to be cool. So fucking don't go where they are. That's the answer to it. It's not like the teens are like, we're coming into where you are. No, they go crazy. They like, oh, TikTok, that'll be our thing. And then everyone who's 30 is like, well, if all the cool kids are on TikTok, I better do the TikTok dance.
I mean, I don't post anything on TikTok. I like looking at TikTok. I like finding weirdos. I like finding like intense. Like on my Instagram feed, I've talked about this before. In the past, my Instagram feels like a lot of car accidents and murders. Lately, my Instagram feed has been a lot of schizophrenic people. Who are like paranoid schizophrenic. And I'm not using that term lightly. I mean, it's like people who are like, this car has been following me for 6 days. I know I'm under surveillance by the deep state. Like, it's like a lot of that stuff. And like, It's like very troubling. And it's like people ranting about crazy things and they have no teeth and they have 6 views on the video. And that's what Instagram is now giving me. But I like that. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm kind of looking for the honest to God odd people, not the people who are going on TikTok and being like, look how random I am, but people who honestly cannot help but be this weird. Yeah. And I find that really interesting and charming. So Tony the Greaser, he's on Instagram too, as Tony the Greaser. So I get
a lot of that stuff on Reddit because I go to like Reddit, like the paranormal Reddit and like that. And then it's always sending me like, here's one that's all about UFOs. And everybody in there is like, everything in the sky is a UFO, no matter what. It is.
Oh yeah. I like to look at
which I suppose it is because if you can't identify it,
it is technically unidentified.
It is technically,
I like retconned the retconned. Oh, excuse me, the retconned sub. Do you know that one?
I've seen that one. Yeah.
And there was one today, which is they changed the universe because I'm pretty sure that in season 1 of Severance, the company was called Lumen with an E, but now it's called Lumen with an O. And I looked up old posts and people were spelling it with an E. So I know they've changed the universe around me. And I was like, no, people just spelled it wrong and you've just internalized that. Like I also thought it might have had an E in it when I was writing a thing about it. And I was like, oh no, that's right. But that's like, I loved how many times it's like, I don't remember something being this way. So therefore the entire universe must have shifted around me.
Yeah.
It is not that I misremembered something, but actually all of reality changed. Yeah. That's incredible narcissism. It's unreal.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing when you see that kind of stuff. I'm always amazed by that.
I love it. I love these people, man. God bless them.
Yeah.
Until they start shooting people. That's a problem.
Then it becomes a problem. Yeah, but when they're on like Reddit, I enjoy reading their posts on Reddit and being like, what? What are you talking about?
There was a big UFO thing over the weekend.
Yes, they a bunch of UFO guys revealed their UFO, and it was not a UFO, and what a shock.
Well, it was a video of a UFO retrieval, and it looks like an egg with duct tape on it. I mean, I honestly was like, this looks like an egg with duct tape, and they're like hanging it above stucco. Like, I was like, this looks like shit. Yeah. Like, even if this is real, you had to get a better shot than this. This is so awful. Because they go, oh, it's an egg-shaped UFO, and it's just a fucking egg out of the fridge.
Yeah.
And somebody put helicopter noise over it to say, this is the helicopter. And I watched it, and I was like, you guys are really this desperate. Like, that you're going to have a guy hang an egg on string and say, this is a retrieval of a crashed egg UFO.
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's that ghost. Our ghost is great because people just put up videos from like their security cameras in their homes.
Oh yeah.
Like out looking outside, and it's like, just look at this person just suddenly appears, and constantly people are like, that's because of the way these cameras work.
Right.
It's not a ghost. I'm like, I think it's a ghost. It's definitely a ghost. It's like, no.
The ghost subreddit has opened my eyes to how many people have security cameras inside their homes.
Yeah, that's weird.
Right? Like looking into their kitchens and their living rooms and their bedrooms. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, either you're faking this and this is just all a setup, or you actually have just a camera running 24 hours while you watch TV. Like, that's so weird.
It's very strange to me. I don't know why you would want that.
It seems so invasive.
I would be uncomfortable at all times.
Yeah, at all times, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Actually, I know people actually do that because they arrested a girl for killing her mother because they had in-house security cam footage of her coming into the house, and then you don't see her go into the mom's room, but you hear her go into the mom's room, and the mom's like, what? And then you hear the girl shoot her twice, and the mom scream. And then the girl was like, I wasn't there. And they have video footage of her walking in the fucking house. And she went to prison. So,
Oh,
yeah, don't commit a murder on camera. I have to
yeah,
recommend that. If you're looking to commit a murder, first of all, I'm going to counsel against it. But if it has to happen, don't do it on camera. That's truly foolish. Truly
yeah,
foolish. So there's a big problem with gang kids and drug dealers filming themselves committing crimes and putting it on TikTok,
sure,
which is crazy. Like, that's just like absolutely bonkers to me that they will like film themselves with their illegal guns and drugs and like put their face in it. And like
yeah.
do you think the cops don't know TikTok exists? Like, is that the premise? Do you think it's that underground that the cops don't know it's there? God damn.
Yeah,
Anyway.
there are a lot of dumb people out there. There was a case 2-3 years ago, maybe, of a guy like an up and coming rapper who wrote an entire song about like how about murdering somebody and breaking down what he did, and they were like, "Wait, we found a body where all of this happened to somebody." Like, and then they arrested him, and they're like, you did this."
That's so good.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so good. Oh man. We got any news this week?
we do. Something I imagine is very difficult for you. Perhaps this is why you have insomnia. Marvel Snap is gone.
You know what? So I was blue sky tweeting like, oh, say goodbye to TikTok. We'll see it again on Monday. And then I went to play Marvel Snap and I got this message and I go, oh, look at Marvel Snap being funny. They're doing a little bit. And then I realized that no, it's not a bit. They are owned by the same company that owns TikTok and it has been wiped off the face of the earth. And I was so upset yesterday. I was so upset. There are login rewards I need to claim.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's kind of like one of the things that I do to wind down at night.
Sure. That's what I'm not kidding when I say I wouldn't be surprised if it's playing into your insomnia.
It's bad, man. I don't love it. And TikTok is back, but Marvel Snap is still down.
It's messed up. Can you get a VPN? Play through a VPN?
You know what? That's like really admitting to a mental problem that I'm not willing to admit to just yet.
It might also be me admitting to not really understanding how VPNs work, because I don't know if that's plausible. I just know every now and then I'll see somebody say like, oh, I had a VPN and that's how I was able to do this. I'm like, I guess it does something. So but
I don't know if the VPN makes a difference. They have me as a US account on there, so I don't know if they don't care, like if I still can't play even if I'm in France. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I don't know. I was surprised that Snap got taken down.
So with Snap, they didn't see it coming. They had no idea it was going to happen.
Yeah.
That's why they're in the middle of a daily login thing, and they're in the middle of a community event where every victory using certain characters raises the community score. And they would not have done that if they knew that the entire US was going to be taken off the fucking game.
Yeah, but I guess everything from ByteDance got pulled.
That's the deal. Idea? Yeah, and I think ByteDance did it. I don't think that was the fucking law. The law was, I think, about TikTok. ByteDance was like, fuck you, we're taking all of our toys home. Yeah. And then the thing is that they put TikTok back up, but they probably just didn't send word down the corporate chain to Newverse, who owns Marvel Snap, who is owned by ByteDance. Okay, put your Marvel Snap back up. They just, that'll happen probably tomorrow.
Sure.
When people get back to the office China time.
Yeah.
So
well, there you go.
Yeah, very upsetting.
It's quite shocking. James Mangold is out there talking about A Complete Unknown, and he was asked about his Swamp Thing movie, and he said his Swamp Thing movie is a standalone movie. He doesn't see it as part of a franchise or anything, and neither does DC. It's just going to be a story all of its own. And he has no interest in making sequels, but if they want to make sequels, they can. He just wants to do the one, and that's it. So that's interesting.
Okay, good for him.
Yeah,
sounds fine. I'm not holding my breath for it, but sounds fine.
Yep. So you got that. Farhan Tahir, who played what was his character's name? He was somebody. Raza in Iron Man.
Yes,
the leader of the Ten Rings. He's going to be in Vision Quest.
Oh wow, interesting.
So yeah, he's coming back for Vision Quest.
Wow, that's interesting.
I'm wondering how, because he died. So I don't know how he's going to come back.
I guess we'll find out. We don't really know how this Vision Quest is going to play out. So
yeah,
but they clearly know that this guy died.
Yeah, I don't think they're like, oh, we forgot.
Oh shit, he's dead.
Yeah, So I'm interested. I'm interested to see how he fits in.
Yeah, it's kind of curious.
So you got that going. David Krumholtz and Emily Beecham have been cast in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow as Supergirl's parents.
So I gotta say, if I were to open my mind to what I imagined a Kryptonian looked and sounded like, I never would have come to David Krumholtz in my whole life.
No,
Never would I have.
no, no. I
And
love it.
me too. I'm like all for it, but
Yeah.
it's like, I'm like, wow, that is just not how I have ever pictured a single Kryptonian.
No.
It's so funny, but yeah, I'm all about it. Great, do it. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I want to see what these Zor-Els are like. Right? That's
Yeah.
what she is. She's Kara Zor-El, right?
Yeah.
That's this version is Kara Zor-El.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. From Argo City.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Oh, David Krumholtz.
That's
wow.
wild.
That's
Like when I first saw it, I was like, this has to be a joke. Like, aside from me, who would be like, we should get David Krumholtz, and apparently everybody at DC
Well,
was like,
and I
we
was
should get
like,
David Krumholtz.
are they her adopted parents on Earth or something, or some storyline like that? But no, it's supposed to be her Kryptonian parents.
That's what the article says, is that it's her Kryptonian parents. They could be, I suppose, her adoptive human parents, but who knows?
Yeah, we
Who
don't know when
knows?
she came to Earth in this universe.
When she was 14.
We know that in this one.
Yeah, Gunn has talked about this before. That one of the things that really excites him about doing Supergirl is that he'll be able to show a difference between Superman and Supergirl, or the DC will show a difference between Superman and Supergirl, and that Superman came to Earth as a child, having no memories of Krypton. She came to Earth at 14, having not just lived on Krypton, she saw Krypton explode,
Right.
and then lived on like a separate, like, dying island in space for years before she came to Earth. So she has a very jaded, cynical look at things.
So she's been on Earth about 6 years at this point, right? We're assuming if this movie takes the premise of the comic that it takes its name from, where she's turning 21 and going on a space bender.
Yeah.
So
that would be the theory.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. So you got that. And then finally, the Daredevil trailer came out.
It did.
Yep.
It did.
Yeah. You know what my favorite part is?
What?
Did a minute 50 where it cuts to a shot of Daredevil screaming, but there's the sound of a tiger roaring.
Yeah, it's really good.
And that made me laugh.
Yeah, it's really good. It seems like this trailer might indicate that they're adapting a Chip Zdarsky story.
Yeah.
Which is that in the Chip Zdarsky story, Daredevil goes too far and kills a guy and quits.
Okay.
And that seems like it might be the deal here.
Yeah.
That we're picking up with Matt Murdock, who has left Daredevil behind because he did kill somebody. He went too far, and he has to be coaxed back into the costume. And so I think that's interesting. I think it's an interesting sort of advancement on the guilt thing for Daredevil.
Yeah.
Instead of like being worried about, will I go too far? It's like, I have gone too far. And how do I live within that? I think that's it. So if that's the case, that's interesting. So
the step would be, he went to LA to get himself a new colorful costume, slept with She-Hulk, went back to New York, killed somebody, quit, and now he's coming back into it.
Yes.
Okay.
But there's plenty of time.
No, yeah. It's just funny. He's like, I'm gonna give myself a new colorful costume. I killed somebody. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that does seem to be the timeline of it. But it's been like 2 years or 3 years since She-Hulk, right?
Yeah.
So if we go with the Marvel thing, that it's essentially real time.
Real time, yeah.
Then he could have been not Daredevil for a solid year.
Sure.
Which in the comics is 400 issues of a comic. So,
well, I mean, from the sound of it, in the trailer, Kingpin is now mayor.
Yes.
And the last time we saw him was at the end of Echo, where he's like, mayor, I'm going to run for mayor.
That will have already been 2 years ago too, right? Or was that this last year?
I think that was last year, but that's plenty of time to run for mayor and become mayor.
When did Echo debut? That's actually a great question.
I think that was 2020, early 2024, wasn't it?
2024, yeah. So it was a year. The premise seemed to be that he was coming back just as the election season was kicking off. That seemed to be the deal.
Yeah.
So yes, that's plenty of time for him to have become mayor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It all
The
works.
one thing I kept waiting for in the trailer where they're sitting at the diner talking, and Kingpin's like, "A lot has happened since we've last seen each other." I wanted Kingpin to be like, "I fought one of the Avengers," and he does not mention that at all. That, like, you think that would come up? Like, I fought an Avenger. I got shot with arrows, and then this girl shot my eye out, and then I went to kill her, and she put her hand on my head and forgave me for my sins, and that was the end. And then I decided to be mayor.
We're gonna be watching Daredevil, so my hopes are high because I don't want to be turning into a show every week I don't like. So
Yes. Yeah.
that
We'll
is the
see.
thing.
The trailer did not really do much for me.
I mean, I think it's gonna be in the same general zone as the Netflix show. It just will it be better made than a Netflix show?
Yes. Yeah.
I think the problem with the Netflix show is not necessarily you could find good bits and good moments and good casting and good ideas.
It was just the writing was not good.
The writing was not good, and the structure, the pacing was atrocious. It's
Yeah.
just like hard to sit through because it is just such a slog of pacing.
Yeah.
So that's I think a big problem. I think the Marvel shows have been pretty good with pacing.
I would say I recently rewatched Hawkeye, and then I rewatched Miss Marvel this past week as well, and those are both very well paced.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
You know, I think, and I thought I haven't rewatched She-Hulk, but I don't remember She-Hulk being like, like I remember it felt like it was moving and it was paced well each episode.
Yeah, I would say that they're all pretty well paced, more or less. I mean, there might be some stuff that is
Falcon and Winter Soldier was not well paced.
That was a mess. The Falcon Winter Soldier was a mess, top to bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let me see if there's anything that you missed that I need to talk about. I think nothing significant. There's been a bunch of a lot of rumors about Wolverine that are just repeating things that this show told you last year.
Yep.
So if you're watching this show or listening to this show, you already know that in fact they're going to keep Hugh Jackman around as Wolverine, but the premise is probably to keep him in his own universe and not have a Wolverine in the MCU who's separate. Now that might change, obviously. But right now that is the deal. So
that's the plan, Stan.
That's the plan, Stan. And that
I want to do it for 10 more years. It's like, okay.
We need a 70-year-old Wolverine. God bless. Yeah. Finally get to Old Man Logan, which we made a whole movie out of.
We already did.
We'll do it all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is like the biggest one. A lot of talk about Marvel looking at Cynthia Erivo for Storm.
Sure.
But I don't know how much that's just wish fulfillment.
I mean, it would be crazy not to be looking at her. You know, she's a good actor. She's in a huge movie.
Yeah.
She's going to have another huge movie next year.
Yeah, no, I know. She's a great... I just don't know. The issue is I don't know if they're going to have Storm. I don't know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, if they're going to have a little Jean Grey, which is the other rumor, that they're looking at young people for Jean Grey, does that mean that there's not going to be a Storm?
I don't know.
Right? So, like, I don't know what the deal is going to be. Are they going to do their own take on X-Men that are really not beholden to any significant comic book stuff? That's possible, too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who can say? Who can say?
We cannot know. And that's the big problem, I think, with trying to figure out what's going on with that. We just don't know what the fucking shape of the MCU X-Men is going to be.
We don't know if they know what it's going to be.
I think they do by now. I have had friends that have gone in for pitches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although they went in for pitches a long time ago, so they've been working on it for a while. So,
I mean, supposedly, according to rumors, they're also currently rewriting the Avengers movies and Spider-Man from scratch, with both of them starting to film in like 4 months. So
that's not that uncommon.
I don't know, but what I'm saying is, I don't know how much Marvel has plotted ahead.
Right. Yeah, the other big piece of rumor is that Annihilus is going to be the big villain in cosmic stuff moving forward, and that the Nova show, one of the pitches, I'm assuming it was not accepted because why else are we hearing about it, was that the Nova Corps were going to be it's like Top Gun, sort of like hot shot pilots, and they were going to go off to like the ass end of the galaxy to do something that they thought was beneath them, and they discover Annihilus and the leading edge of the Annihilus wave. So there's that alarm guy.
There you go.
So that's the big rumor. Annihilus makes sense. Again, we've said this so many times. Or I've said this so many times in this program. At this point, I don't believe any of this is happening. So I just don't believe anything's happening. So when the movies come out or the shows come out, then I'll believe. But I do feel like we're really getting ahead of ourselves with some of this stuff, because I do feel like there's like I guess we'll see how Captain America does.
Yeah. Yeah. Which apparently is trending to do well. So
that is the story right now. But what's really interesting is that there was a THR article talking about the DC studios recently.
Yeah.
And they said that in-house, every eye is focused on July 11th, that July 11th is the make or break. Like if
of course,
if Superman doesn't work, that's it. It's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's pretty interesting.
I mean, Gunn said that 6 months ago.
No, I know. But the fact that they're really fucking in-house, like the way that the article makes it sound is not like, well, if this doesn't work as well as we hope, we can really recover. Like they call it D-Day. So like either you fucking storm the beach or you don't. Like there's no like, maybe we can like, slowly get in there. No, you got to take the beach or you don't take the beach.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, interesting. That we'll have stuff that will still come out, but
Supergirl's filming now. So
yeah. And that's going to be the end of fucking DC comic book characters on screen.
Sure.
I would say that's my guess.
Yeah. Until they sell it to Disney.
Right. And then it becomes a whole different thing. But I don't know. It's interesting. It's fascinating, how all this stuff works.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We shall see. We have viewer mail.
We do.
Ooh,
our first question comes from
that.
What's that?
The light came on. That's so exciting.
Yeah. Our first question is from Tachyon Transmitter on Discord. And he says, given the recent release of Nosferatu, I would love to hear your thoughts on your favorite depictions of Dracula in the comics and other media. Do you think he fits well into either Marvel or DC? Personally, I'm a fan of his mashups with Batman in the comics, Red Rain, and animation, Batman vs. Dracula. The Marvel depictions are pretty inconsistent over the years, but I know Tomb of Dracula is a classic title, and I thought the recent Blood Hunt was a mostly successful crossover. And he would also welcome any deep cut movie recommendations from you, Devin, for horror stuff.
Just horror stuff in general?
Deep cut movie recommendations from horror fan Devin, currently watching Night of the Devils, which is a sleazy 70s Borderlock adaptation.
Well, I would say, first of all, I think the Marvel Dracula is great. And because the Marvel Dracula, they've actually integrated him into the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
And that's not really the case with DC. Like, he's not really like, there's like canon about Dracula in the Marvel
universe. No. Like, Marvel universe is much more Dracula stuff.
He fell in love with Storm. You know what I mean? Like, there's like real Dracula shit in there. I kind of love that. I think that's really great because it's so weird. Like, it's just like, you live in Marvel, Dracula is real.
Dracula's just hanging out.
But they know that Dracula's a movie vampire also. They reference that in Marvel as well. So I really like that a whole bunch. So I'm a big fan of the Marvel Dracula. He's not consistent, but that's okay. He's not been a major lead character for a long time, and I think that's fine. And they have not yet, as far as I know, reinvented him as anything all that different than the basic Lugosi Dracula. He's still like in that ballpark. Yeah. He hasn't turned into like a giant monster bat, like as his full-time
not that
thing.
I've seen. Yeah.
Which is like a popular thing to do. So I like it, but I like that he was like really hot on Storm. I think that's like really great. That's like
sure
to make that like part of, and that was like an X-Men comic, So like that's cool, So
well, one of the things DC always gets the rap of being like goofier than Marvel, but Marvel has Dracula running around, and nobody's like, we should probably just go take care of Dracula. It's not hard. We can have Colossus just pick him up and hold him until the sun comes out. That'll end that problem. And also, like, when they went to visit Banshee in Ireland, and Wolverine's like, hey, there are leprechauns. And Banshee's like, yeah, of course, you're in Ireland. There's leprechauns. And it's like, what? Like, this is not something that just comes up all the time in the Marvel universe, that there's leprechauns hanging out somewhere. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff. And I don't think Claremont introduced Dracula into Marvel, right? That was...
No, I think he had... Well, I think he...
That was Marv Wolfman, right?
Yeah,
I'm not sure who
Tomb of
was.
Dracula was its own comic, I think, before he
Yeah,
showed up in X-Men, I think.
but like Tomb of Dracula was its own comic, and then they integrated it into the Marvel universe, right? Like it wasn't originally part of like in continuity, so to speak.
I think
And
it
then
got
they're like,
there
maybe it
pretty
is.
quick because they brought Blade in. Blade
Yeah,
was created in Tomb of Dracula.
but he showed up like 30 issues in, right? Didn't he?
Yeah,
I think. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, Marvel's got plenty of wacky, weird little things that they just bring up every now and again. And like, oh yeah,
Yeah, no, I definitely like it. So there is no actual. There's a Frankenstein in DC,
yes,
but there is no
yeah.
Dracula, huh?
There's not that I'm aware of. No, the only Dracula stories I can think of in DC are all like Elseworld stories, like
Right.
Red Rain. There's the DC vampires thing, which I don't think Dracula's in that, but it's vampire stuff. They don't really do vampire things in DC so much. So
Hmm.
what are you gonna do?
Huh. Man, I don't know that I have a good recommendation because my man Tachyon Transmitter is already watching a pretty obscure movie. So like I feel like I'm really worried trying to recommend something that is gonna be he hasn't already seen. You know, that's like
Yeah,
the thing. Like that's like a challenge, man. Uh, uh there's a recent one, not a recent. It's one that I watched I don't know 2 years ago. That is I'm not 100% sure how good it is. I really liked it very much. Called Private Parts, and
during Howard Stern, it's pretty old.
no, it is not. It is
Yeah,
a really fucked up, weird movie about a old rundown hotel and this that may have a serial killer in it, and it's directed by Paul Bartel, who is like part of the New York both exploitation uh, and art scenes.
yeah,
And so, you know, he did Eating Raoul, which is like probably his biggest movie. And this is his first directorial film. And he directed Eating Raoul, he directed Death Race 2000. And he did what's that one? Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills. And it's like sleazy, but it's not like depraved. It's just sleazy. So you know, it's very strange. It's very odd. And I watched that a couple of years ago, and I've it's got a great poster that I can't recommend enough. The poster alone is terrific. So yeah, that's my take on that. But it's tough when somebody's like, I'm currently watching and they name an obscure film. I'm like, oh
you're like,
fuck, like what am I going to
well,
say to you, man? Like Jesus.
you figured it out.
Yeah, if you're like, I just watched for the first time ever American Werewolf in London, I'm like, buddy, I got you. Like, but like when you're already deep into the 70s exploitation, I don't know. So, all right, what's next?
Next is we'll go with this one. This is from Jeff Gabrielson. He says, since Muschietti has put the final nail in the coffin, fan cast the next Flash. Who would you either like to see do it? Maybe who in history would you have loved to see do it? I'm going to say something. I'm going to go wild here. I'm not sure that Muschietti has put the final nail in the coffin because there were reports of him doing an interview on like a Spanish radio station that where he said a bunch of stuff that upset people, but apparently it was a bad translation because when somebody who actually like was like a native speaker was like, no, this is not what he said. This is what he said. The translation was better. It made more sense.
Right.
So he might have gotten in a little trouble because somebody who took like Spanish in high school put it on Reddit and then was like, oh, he said this stuff. And that's not quite what he said,
Right.
but who knows? But for Flash, this may be surprising to you. I spent a lot of time wondering who should play Flash. I don't know. I do know Dream of Dreams. Somebody like I would suggest like a George Clooney for Jay Garrick as like he's old and we see him at the end of his career. But at the same time, I don't want the JSA running around in current day. I don't like that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't want that. But for like a Barry Allen or Wally West, I don't know. I don't know the young people of today, the young actors out there so well. So I couldn't really say.
You know who should play Nightwing, though, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, watching the Pit. What's that guy's name?
I don't know.
Patrick Ball. I was like, he could do a good Nightwing, I think.
He's too handsome
To be Nightwing?
to be alive. He is so distractingly handsome in
He
every
is a
scene of
he
the
is a
pit.
very handsome guy. That's why he popped out to me. I was like, wait a minute, this guy's a doctor?
Yeah, it's like
Come on.
this male model walks into the OR, and you're like, wait, what the
Yeah,
fuck? This guy is
yeah,
gorgeous. Jesus Christ.
yeah. Well, there are two things. First, when he first shows up, I was like, there's no way this guy's a doctor. And then in the second episode, he's like, I got a dog. And one of the other doctors is like, oh, your wife's going to hate that. She's already got 3 kids to take care of. I'm like, there's no way this guy has 3 kids. He's like 20. Like, he's a child.
I think it's funny they took the hottest guy that's ever been on television and they gave him a wife and kids.
Yeah.
So he can't romance the other doctors on the show. It feels like you want that guy romancing the other doctors.
I get the feeling that show's not so interested in romance.
I don't 100% disagree. There is a little bit of it. There's a tiny bit of it. There is some
Yeah.
sparks that fly. Have you watched episode 3?
No, I've only watched the first 2.
Yeah, there's some sparks that fly. You could see places where they could go with it, you know?
Yeah.
But of course, because the premise is that it's 15 hours in a row, you're not going to have that kind of space for a lot of romance. But
Yeah.
it's just funny because usually we have a guy that good looking. He's the guy that all the nurses are in love with, but like everybody hates his guts. So
Yeah. Do you think at some since this is the ER, the next generation, so to
Yeah.
speak, at some point, do you think they're going to reference that his dad was George Clooney?
that'd be great.
Yeah, like I forgot who it was. He had a romance thing on ER with.
Yeah, he sure did.
I forgot the actor's name, but she was very attractive. Maybe they had a
she
kid.
was very
and that's
beautiful.
it. Yeah.
All right, what's our last question?
Our last question is from Charles Villanueva. Which universe has better villains? Not talking about the rogues gallery of heroes like Spider-Man or Batman, but rather big iconic villains that serve all the major big bads of respective universe: Doom, Darkseid, Magneto, Luthor, etc.
I mean, I gotta say, it's gonna sound like I'm just like doing like home team, but I think Marvel has the better. There's like a lot of really great iconic DC villains, but I think this is not the. I think Marvel has a breadth of villains that DC doesn't have.
I disagree.
Like of iconically big villains.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Who are the big cosmic villains at DC?
I mean, Darkseid for one.
Yeah, but I'm saying he's like the one. Yeah.
Well,
Who else?
he's for one. Brainiac. He's pretty huge.
Is he a cosmic villain? Is it really?
Yes. He goes around collecting like cities from other planets, shrinking them and putting them in bottles. How is that not cosmic?
Okay.
You know, I mean, the DC cosmic stuff is very, these days, very, very New Gods based. But I mean, all the Green Lantern Corps, all the different Lantern Corps, that's all cosmic stuff. So you got Sinestro out there. He's pretty classic. He's pretty
I think
iconic.
he sucks though, but okay.
Maybe, but you know, I kind of think Annihilus sucks, but he's out there too, you know?
Yeah, I know, but I do think I would just never let a guy with a name like Sinestro join my club. I just would not allow it.
I wouldn't.
Can't be done. Can't be
I
done.
I wouldn't call myself a nihilist. So, like, I mean,
but that's his deal.
And by the way, keep in mind, Sinestro did get kicked out of the club and was like, "Fine, I'll start my own." So, in fairness, and then he got kicked out of that club.
His name was Sinestro. Like,
yes.
That's just like, come on. Like, why would you give your baby that name?
Yes, that is my favorite joke from the Bumblebee movie.
Yeah.
Is when the U.S. government's working with the Decepticons, and John Cena goes, "Can we think about this for a minute? They're called Decepticons. Are we sure they're on the up and up?" I've always liked that. I always enjoyed that.
I just feel like there's a real breadth to Marvel villains because Marvel had that fertile Stan and Jack and Period and Ditko and all those guys. It was, I think, maybe the most single fertile period of comic book creation in history. And so much came out of it.
I don't know if I would agree with that either.
Really?
I would say the Golden Age was a pretty fertile period. It birthed it all. And they gave us, you know, Joker, Lex Luthor, you know, the Ultra Humanite, you know, quite a few big ones when it comes to villains and even more to heroes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I feel like, I mean, again, this is maybe me being home team. I feel like that a lot of the Golden Age stuff had to be transformed to survive. And that's less of the case with the Silver Age Marvel stuff. that it's less. It had to be less totally transformed. Some of it had to be, but not to the extent that a lot of the.
I mean, Doctor Doom has been quite transformed.
I don't think he's been that transformed.
I think he's been very transformed. I think
Wait,
he's vastly different than he used to be.
How do you say?
Because he used to be like, I'm gonna go trap the Fantastic Four in like pirates. That'll be fun. That'll be a good time. And now he's like, I'm going to recreate the entire universe into my will. Like,
Well, I mean, he's gotten more ambitious as he's gotten more experienced. But like, he's still the same guy. You know what I mean? He's still the same dude. Like, it's like he is the guy that uses magic and science. He's the leader
he
of
didn't originally
Liberia.
use magic. Magic was not originally part of his deal.
He's got magic going on pretty early in the comics, in the Fantastic Four. Pretty early. His origin story in Fantastic Four Annual #1, I think, has him as a gypsy raised in magic.
Yes, yeah.
So that's real early.
I guess, but
that's his first
he's not
origin.
using it though. His mother is using it.
Yeah, but he's still. But like once you have like a character like that whose mother is using magic, the idea that they should use magic is not that far. You know what I mean? That was establishing part of his character when they were really making him.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just but I think this is a personal taste thing. I think a lot of it comes down to like I don't think I would ever include the Ultra Humanite among the greats.
No, I was just using him as an example, but I wouldn't probably count him either. But I do love him though. He's like, what's your deal? Well, they took Hitler's brain and put him in an ape.
No, I think that's great. Like I'm like all about that, but like, the same way that I think Hate Monger's an incredible Marvel villain, I don't think he's one of the greats, even though he also is Hitler's brain in somebody else's body. We are pro any villain who has Hitler's brain. We like that.
Yes.
That's good story.
I mean, I think it's hard to ignore, I mean, Joker is arguably the most iconic comic book villain out there, period.
Yeah, but when did he become that? So he's always been iconic, but like when did he become the Joker that we have today? Because he was not the Joker that we had today in the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
No, but I mean...
He's like almost a fundamentally different character at this point. Like, I think if Joker from 1945 meant the Joker of 2025, he'd be like, what the fuck is your deal, brother?
Sure, but I think you can say that with a lot of these characters.
No, I agree. But that's, I think, what's the thing about the Golden Age is that the characters, I think, have shifted so significantly because of the nature of the world in which they were introduced and because
I mean, like, let's keep in mind, Thanos used to ride around in a helicopter.
He never did.
It's in the comic.
No, I know that's an Amazing Spidey Adventures comic.
Yeah, still
that's not a canon comic.
Whatever.
That is
Thanos was a low level goofball character.
No, he never was.
Yes, he was.
No,
he was never a giant. He wasn't that built originally as a giant cosmic threat. He was a bad guy, but he was like, he was ship, and I go do stuff.
No, he was built to be Darkseid. He's a Darkseid ripoff. He's a straight Darkseid ripoff. It's not even like close.
Yeah.
And Jim Starlin always had him as that. Like that's always been his deal. Like that's always been his deal. And so that was always the premise of him. He was never just a guy robbing banks.
No, he wasn't robbing banks, but I remember him starting off as more of a low rent thing than what he is now, what he's seen now.
I think he's got more powerful, but Starlin was always ripping off Darkseid.
Yeah.
From the start, which is always why it's funny that Thanos got the screen first.
Yeah. Because
when Darkseid gets to screen, it begins to look like you're just riffing on Thanos. But no, Thanos is just ripping off Darkseid.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure Starlin would even like not agree with that. I think Starlin might be open about that at this point. So
maybe. I don't know.
But anyway, yeah, I think it's about a matter of personal taste, though. I think at the end of the day. So that's, I think, a big part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think both have quite the roster of iconic villains, of great villains. And I do think like Magneto, I would say the two greatest comic book villains are Magneto and Joker, and for two very different reasons. Magneto, because he is a villain who has such a tragic backstory that explains his thought process, where you're like, I kind of agree with this guy. And then Joker, because he has no backstory and he's just chaos personified. And I like, that's what I like. I don't like when they try and like explain Joker. I like it when Joker's just, I don't know, I'm just here, I'm doing stuff.
Right.
And that's it, But like, I think those are like arguably the two best villains out there. Would be my stance.
I think I might be a little bit colder on Joker than you are.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Joker is overused.
I mean,
And at a certain point, there's a thing where it's like, okay, like how many times can this happen? Like,
I think that might be part of my problem with Joker. He's a well they go back to too often, and
yeah.
because he is not a conventional like, well, they keep going back to Magneto, but Magneto grows and changes because he's a character. The Joker's
Well,
not a character, and so as a result,
Magneto, I would also say at a certain point, the X-Men should be like, no, man, we're done with you. No more of this. Like it's been 2 years. I'm a good guy now. No, 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 no. We
Magneto
know your
has
deal.
never become a real villain again, like a real hardcore villain.
Wasn't he a real hardcore villain in the early '90s?
He became he wasn't like it's like because he became more ideologically motivated over time and the comics had him more ideologically motivated, it was different than like some guy who's trying to like, take over England or whatever. Like he was a terrorist is what I would say. And that was the thing. He was a terrorist and the Cyclops became a terrorist. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it's more interesting than just a villain. You know what I mean? Because it's like you ask the Irish people, well, were the IRA terrorists or heroes? And they're like, depending on which side of that. Oh, there goes the cat. He's yawning. He's so bored by this talk.
He's
Depending on
trying to
which
let us
side.
know. He's like Catwoman, obviously.
Depending on which side of the conflict you're on, you have a different opinion of the IRA.
Sure.
And so I think it's the same thing with Magneto. And it's about how his priorities and the X-Men's priorities change over time and they come together and they go apart. And but I don't think he's been like he was like remember he had the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants when he came out first.
Yes.
Like that's
Yeah.
so he became an ideological terrorist who had actual goals of social justice. And so I think that's different than he was in the 60s in terms of villainy.
Well, I mean, that completely goes against what you said earlier.
Which is what?
That the DC characters had to change with times, and the Marvel characters have stayed the same. They were built this way. He clearly wasn't.
Well, he's the most interesting. One of the reasons why he's one of the most interesting villains is because he is a character that's changed so significantly over time. And that change has always felt really motivated within his own story. And so it's not just been like, hey, we need a new take on Magneto. We haven't had him in a comic in 12 months. He's a brand new take on Magneto. He has evolved in the stories and not like, because a lot of villains, that was what happened. They won't be around for a while and then they'll be like a brand new take on the Riddler. And it's like, okay, I guess this is what he is now. But
and Riddler's sexy now.
Exactly. Sexy Riddler. He's got a big giant question mark on his dick. And, and
he really should get that checked out by a doctor.
But the Magneto, he's evolved in the story. And Magneto, I think when he stopped being a villain fairly early or halfway through the Claremont era, I would say, he kind of just quit being a villain. Like he was an antagonist and he was a terrorist, but he wasn't a villain. Like Magneto could walk into the room and everybody wouldn't feel the need to attack him immediately. They might be not very happy he's in the room, but like his relationship with the X-Men became really, really different.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing in the original Secret Wars where Magneto's there.
Right.
And the heroes are like, you can't hang out with us. And he's like, I don't want to hang out with Dr. Doom and his crew.
Right. I'm not
so
that
I'm just
guy.
Going to go make my own thing over here. And then I'm just going to have sex with Rogue or with Wasp for a little while. And then when this is all over, I'll go home.
Well, Eric's very hot. I mean, to do it in Star Wars terms, Magneto's like Saw Gerrera, who is like a guy that the rebels do not want to fucking associate with.
Yeah.
But he's on the same team as them essentially, but they don't like him. And they might, depending on what ends up happening, they might take up arms against him if his shit gets too wild.
But there was a point where the X-Men were like, yeah, you can run the school.
That was Charles. Yeah. Charles gave his best buddy a chance. Yeah.
The
X-Men didn't like it, but it turned out it was a good choice.
He got his best costume.
Magneto was a good school teacher. So
he got his best costume during that period.
Yeah. All right. That's our reader mail. Are you ready to talk about the first appearance of the Falcon?
Sure, but if you want to send us some questions,
you can
go to ask.cinema.sanga@gmail.com and send us some questions.
All right, do that, guys. Get your questions on the air or on the video. All right, now let's do it. We're going to talk about the first appearance of Sam Wilson, the Falcon. Captain America, I think Volume 1, number 117, The Coming of the Falcon. This comic picks up in the middle of a lengthy story that I went back and read.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So
yeah, this really put a damper on my whole thing of like, you just be able to just pick up any comic and go with it. And this one starts, it's like, good luck.
Yeah, this one really
I mean, they explain it, kind of. You know.
So the deal is that Steve Rogers had decided that it was bad that everybody knew he was Captain America. And so he used the opportunity of combat with Madam Hydra to pull off a twisteroo where he made it seem like Captain America was killed. And then when they recovered the Captain America's stuff, his helmet and his outfit, they also found a rubber mask of Steve Rogers, which meant that everybody now thinks that Captain America was never Steve Rogers. And so
just randomly chose a guy and was like, I'm going to fuck up this dude's
that's
life.
who he was in World War II. Everybody knows that he was Steve Rogers in World War II.
Yeah.
So the premise is that he killed off the secret identity. And so that now he could be a different guy because he had begun to get really worried about everybody he loved because he was so famous as Steve Rogers. There was no delineation between Captain America and Steve Rogers. So he
isn't he also a cartoonist at this time?
I'm not sure if he is yet.
Okay.
And so he has this adventure. In the course of it, Madam Hydra takes the entire the Avengers have a funeral for Captain America where they bury a dummy because they're like, we couldn't find his body. And it's so funny. And it's a very small funeral. Like, you know, today when you do these kinds of stories where the character dies and everybody thinks they're dead, you have a big event. But this, they just did a private little ceremony in Avengers Mansion.
Yeah.
And it turns out, though, Madam Hydra infiltrated the funeral. And when they open the casket, gas comes out. And all the Avengers get put into their own coffins. And Madam Hydra goes and takes them to the cemetery to bury them in their coffins, to bury them alive.
This really is the kind of stuff I miss from comics. Because now all I'm thinking of is Step Brothers when he's burying what's his face, and he wakes up. He's like, "What are you?" He's like, "Shut up! You'll wake the neighbors. I'm burying you." That's what I think. He's like, "I'm not dead."
So Rick Jones has been Bucky, and Rick could not bring himself to go to the funeral, so he wasn't there when this happened. So he follows them to the cemetery to try to like save them, and then out of nowhere, Captain America shows up, and they have a fight, and Madam Hydra ends up killing herself with her own missiles, as these characters often do. And so now everybody knows that Cap is alive, but Steve Rogers is dead. So Cap has this issue where he doesn't want to go, for whatever reason, he doesn't want to go live with the Avengers. He wants to go live on his own, but he can't get a hotel room because he doesn't have an ID. He doesn't have a home address. He ends up staying at a flop house in Times Square for $10 a night. And while he's he's like at his lowest point, he's like, "Oh, here I am, hero of World War II, in a whorehouse." The Red Skull just materializes in the middle of his room and beats the shit out of him because the Red Skull has found the cosmic cube again.
Okay.
And the Red Skull then does a whole thing where he changes bodies with Captain America. So Captain America is now inside the Red Skull, and Red Skull's inside Captain America. The Red Skull starts having he starts hanging around Manhattan as Captain America. Everybody's like, "Oh, we think you're so hot." And he's like, "I know, I am very hot." And he's like, his thought process is like, "So this is what it's like to be a hero. Everyone loves you, but that's not good for me. I want them to fear me." And which is really great. And so he starts trying to fuck up. He says, I've killed Steve Rogers and I'm going to kill Captain America in my own body. But what I really want to do before that is I want to kill his reputation so that he's like,
you're in this issue now, by the way.
Is that happens last issue?
That's all in this issue.
That's last issue too, though. He's recapping his plan from last issue.
Well, he does that like 2/3 of the way into this comic. He's like, "I'm going to ruin his whole name."
No, he does that last issue because what happens then is that then Cap is the Skull is on the run, and he gets chased by the police, and he goes to Avengers HQ, and the Avengers don't believe that he's Cap, and they beat him up and they tie him up, and then Red Skull uses the cosmic cube to make Sharon Carter come. So when he changed bodies, he made Sharon Carter come into the room, and she's like, "Cap, the Red Skull is here." And the Red Skull hugs her and goes, "Don't worry, baby, I'll take care of this." So he's cucking Captain America. So anyway, he has Sharon Carter come to Avengers Mansion. He like mind controls her, and he tells her to kill Captain America. He thinks this is like the best way to kill Captain America, to have his girlfriend do it. But
is this story just every comic book story of the next like 30 years?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah,
like it's one more day. It's
yeah, I know
the assassination of Captain America after Civil War. It's Superior Spider-Man.
I know, it's crazy.
Wow.
So, but the thing is that the Red Skull, who is Captain America, saying, "Baby, no, don't. It's me. I'm Steve," and she can't be sure, so she won't pull the trigger, even with the cosmic cube controlling her. So the Red Skull, very frustrated, is like, "Fuck it. I'm just gonna have to take care of Steve Rogers another way," and he teleports him to the island of the Exiles, and that's where the issue begins.
Which apparently might be Rio de Janeiro. I was very shocked when all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, by the way, there's a whole village and stuff, and we're all just hanging out here." And the Falcon took a car ride from Rio to get here. I was like, "What?" I was like, "I thought this was inside the cosmic cube."
No,
like,
no, it's confused. An island. It's an island near the Sargasso Sea. Sargasso? Anyway, that's where it is. They bring the island of the Exiles back in later comic books, by the way. So Steve crash lands. What?
Just this whole issue was amazing to me in so many ways.
So Steve lands, and he's still in the Red Skull's body here. And he's like, "Oh, you know what? He thinks he's going to get me, but he's not. I'm going to fuck him up." And the Red Skull, meanwhile, is still in Captain America's body. He's hanging out watching the cosmic cube like it's an iPad. And he says, well, I've put him on this island where everybody really hates me. So therefore, they're going to fucking tear him to pieces. And it turns out that the people that he's talking about are the Exiles. And these are characters who were already introduced in a Captain America comic about a year and a half earlier. And the premise here is that these guys were all supposed to be world-conquering tyrants from World War II who worked with the Red Skull. But at the end of the war, when shit went bad, he turned his back on them. And then later on, they might talk about this in this comic, I can't remember. They found a cosmic cube, and they said, "Hey, Skull, we heard you looking for one of these." And then the Skull once again betrayed them. Yeah. So they really hate him now. So they are
names, though.
They are just a pack of dorks. I mean,
they have the best names.
It is wild that the Red Skull is like, these are the dopes that are going to kill Captain America.
This was like when he says that, and the first guy's like, "Thanks for teaching me how to use my scarf as a weapon." I'm like, "What? That's your move?"
It's so funny. These are the guys that are going to kill Captain America. It's so good. So we got these dudes, and Cadavis, and what is this? Totenbeim, Iron Hand, and so they're looking for the Skull. They know the Skull has shown up. They want to kill him. Only the Red Skull's death can give the Exiles total triumph. They're living on a tropical wonderland. Just let it go, guys. Like, you got like the village that's like enslaved to you.
Yeah,
like,
it seems pretty chill.
Just enjoy yourselves, man. Just like have a nice time. Open a resort. Like that's what you should be doing. Exiles on the beach. Like just like have a nice time.
Yeah, they literally are introduced walking down the beach and being and like I guess maybe they do this every morning. They take a walk on the beach and recap their hatred for the Red Skull.
Yeah,
would be the idea.
Yeah. If you are wondering that how could these guys possibly defeat Captain America, possibly because he now falls out of the tree.
Which he does say Red Skull made that happen.
I know. It's like really funny though.
It's kind of questionable though. He might just be
like, that's the thing you might say when you the Red Skull did that to me. Yeah.
Because he does this, and I was willing to buy that. Like, oh, the Red Skull did something to make me fall out of the tree with the cosmic cube. Okay, sure. Later on, he's like, "Oh, I forgot I'm wearing a mask." It's like, you may not be very smart, as it turns out, Captain America.
He was on the run from the cops, like, for, like, a whole issue. They were, like, had, like, helicopters gunning
according to what you just said, he was captured by the Avengers.
Yes.
And not that it would help to be like, "Oh, you can take off this mask," because he's not going to look like Steve Rogers, right? But still.
It looks like whoever that's underneath the mask, yeah.
Which we don't get to see, because he's like, "Oh, I better disguise myself." Why?
He's not sure if the Exiles have seen Red Skull's face.
I'd say it seems real weird.
He doesn't think they have, but he has to be certain. So he falls in front of the Exiles, and this is when the guy uses his scarf. The Exiles are like a collection of racial caricatures that are they're not like technically
they're all like
offensive.
Eastern European characters, I guess, right?
Well, there's Chang too, who's like Chinese, right? or Asian, I should say, because I guarantee Stan was not considering which nation from Asia this guy
Yes.
came from.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of all Eastern European, but like this guy with the scarf, he's like maybe Turkish because he got the fez on his
Yeah.
head. And Scarf Boy, because Steve taught him how to use a scarf as a weapon, which is so funny, knows how to counter it perfectly. And he appears to break this guy's neck, is what my reading of this channel.
Seems to completely murder that guy. Yeah.
And so
And then murder chair.
And then the guy in his murder chair, Cadavis in his murder chair. It's so cool.
Yeah.
What
I
aisle
just
of
love that he
IKEA is
says,
it in?
my murder chair will do it better. And it's like, oh man, I wish I had a murder chair.
So,
what a fun thing to say.
Chang pulls out his gun, and Cadavis is like, no way, man, my murder chair will do it better. And they shoot his endless bullets. He has infinite bullets. He's infinite ammo. And but Steve is able to put sand in his eyes.
Yeah.
And that is able to take out, for the moment, Cadavis. And then he fights a guy with a whip. What's this guy's name anyway? Do you know?
Grunning.
Grunning? That's not a very good name.
No.
And then
not as good as Iron Hand Hauptmann.
Iron Man Hoffman is a great name.
Iron Hand Hauptmann.
Iron Hand Hoffman. That's a great name because it could be a wrestler. It could be a supervillain.
Like yeah,
like it's really good. And he has that really good like World War I German look on him. Like
yes.
that's what I like.
He's got the monocle.
Yeah, it's really. He looks like a real Hun. And the Red Skull is fucking dying laughing watching this, and he is having the time of his life. But the thing is, he knows that these schmucks are going to kill Captain America, so he doesn't need to bother watching the whole thing. Yes, such a great villain bit.
Yes, all this violence is not for me.
It makes me sad.
Yeah. I love too that he's doing all of this in what appears to be Central Park. He's just standing in the middle of Central Park watching a cosmic cube and laughing and talking to himself.
I believe that is the deal. Yeah. So meanwhile on the island, though, as soon as the Red Skull changes the channel, a fucking hawk comes out of the sky and starts fucking with the exiles. And they're like, Jesus, this hawk seems like he was like on purpose doing this. And he comes twice and fucks with the exiles. And at this point, Steve's like, this can't be an accident. I'm going to get the fuck out of here. This seems like
this is when my favorite guy shows up. My favorite named, at least.
Yeah.
Is Krushki. Whose maneuver seems to be crushing people.
Krushki. It's really
His name
good.
is Krushki.
So he
really took the time to come up with the names.
So Steve's like, gosh, it seems like this Falcon is acting on somebody's orders, and he knows that I'm the good guy. And so he takes off into the jungle to catch a breather, and he's like looking at the Falcon. The Falcon takes off, and then he goes, "Hey, holy shit! You know what? I'm wearing a mask this whole time." For the last 3 issues of this comic book, I've been wearing a mask. What do you know?
Oh, it's a reminder.
And then it's so stupid. It's like so dumb that he decides. Like Stan was like, I don't even know if the Red Skull's wearing a mask canonically at this point. Like, I don't know what his deal is right now.
I mean, I'm guessing he was, because otherwise, why would you do this in the middle of the comic?
Because Stan needed him to go talk to Sam, and he couldn't do it with the Red Skull face.
Yeah, yeah.
And when he got to this point, because they probably were not fucking thinking ahead as they were writing this story, because this is like 6 issues this goes back. He's like stream of consciousness it. Like it's not particularly well structured by any.
No, they were not plotting these out.
No, these are big yes and comics. Yeah. I just wonder if at this point he's like, fuck, he's got to talk to this guy, but he's got a skull for a face. This is not going to work out. So he takes off the skull face. We don't get to see what the Red Skull's face looks like. And then Cap says, hey, you know what? In World War II, I used a lot of clay to make masks. And just like that scene in Hunger Games where the baker kid,
cake maker,
makes
himself into a rock. Yeah.
It's sort of exactly like that. It's so great.
There's a moment later where he says he uses clay to change his hair color.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's like you just plop a lot of clay on top of your head and hope it looks like hair. Is that the idea?
He gives himself eyebrows.
Yeah.
It's so good. Meanwhile, Red Skull as Cap is wandering around New York City, and he's like, you know what? I gotta go do something here. He goes to get a cab, and the cab driver's like, holy shit, I thought you guys flew everywhere. Which I like. That's like a good Marvel Universe touch. where the cabbie's like, "Wait, you guys take cabs?" Like that's like a
Yeah.
good Marvel
Well,
Universe
I
touch.
like that the cabbie says, "I thought you guys flew everywhere," and Red Skull, as Captain America, says, "There's no need to think, just drive." Which I love.
He sees the adoring fans. They drive past Radio City, and he goes to the swankiest hotel in town, where everybody gathers to see Captain America. Some guy's like, "Boy, I never imagined Captain America having that kind of swagger. He
Yep.
kind of loves being noticed. Look at that fucking Gene Colan. Look how he drew Captain America
Gene
walking
Colan,
into that.
some great art in this issue. Some
Yeah.
amazing art in this
But
issue.
this the way that he has his legs placed here, that is such swagger that he has
Yeah.
got going on. He is
Yeah.
walking down like the runway right
I mean,
now.
he's sashaying. He's like, sashay.
All the girls want to touch his muscles,
And he's like, let's do it. Yeah, go for it.
he
Soon
goes-
you're going to bow before me.
and then he goes and lays out on a couch and does a photo shoot for all the assembled photographers. So
I
good.
love it. I love it.
This is so good, man. This is so delightful. And it's one of these moments like where you really realize how dumb Captain America's outfit is with his big boots and shit like that when he's laying down. It's so funny. It's such a great moment. I loved it. I was so happy about this.
It's a great panel, or a splash page even. It's a
Splash
splash page.
Yeah, they know how to use a splash page. They're like, let's have Captain America laying on a couch.
Yeah.
Finally, he gets sick of it. And they start asking him a question about Bucky Barnes. And he's like, you know what? I can't answer these questions. So everybody fuck out of here. And then we cut, meanwhile.
Which, by the way, beautiful moment, because he's like, all of you got to go. And they all just leave the lobby of the hotel. Everyone just leaves the lobby. And then he sits there again, just sits in the middle of this lobby talking out loud about what he's done.
He's doing his villain monologue in the middle of the lobby.
3 feet away from him is a bellhop being like, fucking what? Hold on. You're the Red Skull?
Meanwhile, at AIM headquarters, MODOK is back. And they're talking about the Cosmic Cube, which MODOK created. So they have to get it back because nobody's allowed to use the Cosmic Cube against AIM. Yeah. So, and then we cut to the first appearance of Sam Wilson, who looks like he's in a production of The King and I, perhaps. And he's so wild looking, man. And
it is weird.
He has got his red pants on, his big green falconing glove, and he's got a giant fucking grin on his face. And this happened, and I was like, boy, I'm sure that Sam is a social worker from Harlem. I'm positive of this. How is he like a fucking like tropical island guy? Like, I don't even understand this. And I honestly don't understand even within the context of this comic book.
No, when he explains it and Captain America's like, that makes sense. I'm like, no, it doesn't. None of this makes
sense at all. This is crazy. So he's got Red Wing, his Falcon, and he's talking to Red Wing and how good how happy he is that that Red Wing helped beat up on the exiles. And then we cut back to Steve, who is now making clay on his face. He
also, by the way, to be very clear, we learn here that Falcon is colorblind.
Yeah.
Yes, because he says
the guy in the red jumpsuit.
The guy in the red jumpsuit. He's clearly the Red Skull. Captain America is wearing a green jumpsuit throughout this whole issue.
That's a good point. He's red-green colorblind. I wonder if that's actually the case or if that was a coloring issue with the reprint here.
I don't know. It'd be funny if now they have to retcon everything to be like, oh yes, he is. He's red-green colorblind.
He's red-green colorblind. I love the fact though that Steve takes clay and makes a face that is perfectly human looking. I mean, this is crazy. Yes. He's got the coloration's correct. He's got eyebrows. Everything is totally right. And his hair is darkened.
His hair is darkened. Maybe because we don't know what color hair Red Skull has.
He says I darken the hair.
He says it, but like, why? Why would you go to that length?
I don't know, man. I think because
okay, I'm gonna make a clay face that's gonna work perfectly somehow.
I wonder if.
But I better do the hair too, in case the exiles are like, "There's only one man we've ever seen with blonde hair before."
I wonder if Stan's thing was that he didn't want to show the Skull's face because he wanted the Skull to be a character from the comic. Maybe he was thinking about doing a reveal at some point.
Maybe.
And so therefore, like, he maybe didn't even know who he wanted it to be. Like, oh my God, the Red Skull's actually Nick Fury now. But that's why he even has to say, I made my hair darker because he doesn't want you to try to figure out from any element because he doesn't know if that's what he's going to do with it or not. He might be thinking about doing it.
But then wouldn't at this point Captain America know who he is?
He hasn't seen his own face.
He has to have been looking in like water or something to do all of this. I refuse to believe he did this without being able to see what he's doing.
Captain America just wore a mask for 3 issues of a comic book and forgot that he was wearing a mask.
That's true.
So I do.
And I guess he does say, I hope my disguise, I didn't make the crude disguise resemble my own natural features too much. So he has no clue what he looks like right now. It would have been amazing if he had like one eye like way too high up and like
that would be so funny.
His nose is over on like his ear.
And then Sam makes an extraordinarily homoerotic entrance into the jungle. It is crazy. It's crazy, man. He's just rippling back and he's just like twisting at the hips and his butt is out. Like, it's crazy. So he meets Steve, who's pretending to be somebody else. And yeah, he says, you're the one in Scarlet that was fighting the exiles. He's talking to a guy in a green fucking jumpsuit.
Jumpsuit.
And he says,
which the Red Skull always wore green.
Yeah, pretty sure.
So I don't think it's a coloring issue with like the recolor.
I wonder if he's colorblind. We should look that up on some app. But he's like, I don't know who you are, but you're an enemy of the exiles, so that means you're a friend of mine. And then Steve says a weird as shit. That goes double for me, especially since you sound more Harlem than Haitian.
Yes.
What, Steve? What? I think he means because you're an American like me. He's talking like Captain America here.
I think he's even going further and being like, you're a New Yorker like me. But
it doesn't come across in the panel.
No, it comes across like he's like, if you were Haitian, I'd beat the crap out of you.
Yeah, from one of those shithole countries, you eat our pets. Like, that's like the vibe that you get from that panel.
Yeah.
And Falcon says, you know it, man. I'm a big city brother from way back. And so he takes Steve with him to go walk to a village. And he's telling Steve, the story of the village, which is that it was a peaceful village until the exiles showed up. They did not have any way to defend themselves. And so they got turned into serfs by the exiles, who are well armed with murder chairs. And so Sam's been trying to organize them to get them to do an uprising. And it's not really working out so well. And Steve's like, yeah, it makes sense because these guys are professional killers. Like, that's a big deal. And so Steve says, what's your backstory? And he says, who are you? What's your stake in all this? And Sam says, I've been wondering about that myself.
He's like, that Stan Lee being like, I got to come up with a story real quick.
Shit, that's the next panel. So we flash back to Sam as a kid in Harlem. He's always loved birds, and he he had a pigeon coop, and he could practically make
biggest pigeon coop in Harlem.
Yeah, and he could practically make those high flyers talk. I want to specify for the audience at home that the time when Sam would have been a kid in New York City, pigeons on roofs were like a thing, like a significant thing. Like, you could go into neighborhoods and a lot of people had pigeon coops on their roofs.
Yeah.
So this is like not as out of nowhere as it perhaps might seem in 2025.
It used to be a pretty common hobby.
Yeah.
In New York. Yeah.
Yeah. It was everywhere. So just as weird as it comes across now, I think it's like a little bit less weird in context.
Yeah. What is weird is that half his cage is hanging off the side of the building, which seems very dangerous.
Does seem dangerous. He got really hung up on falcons. He went to Rio for vacation. I don't know why that was the story beat, that he went to Rio on vacation to see a falcon. I mean, honestly don't know what that adds to anything. And that made him hooked on falcons. And then he bought a falcon named Redwing, and they became best friends. He says, we got something going on.
They are soulmates.
Well, the thing is that eventually it becomes that Sam can see through Redwing's eyes. Yeah. So, like, you're not wrong, So I don't know if Stan had that plan yet. Like, I don't know what that's.
I mean, he says he's more than a bird. He's more than a falcon. It's like he's part of me.
Yeah. But I don't know if Stan has decided it's a superpower yet.
I think he has, because he also says earlier that, like, him and Falcon talk. Like, they talk to each other.
Redwing.
Yeah, Redwing and Falcon talk to each other.
So Sam is telling the story to Steve, and all the villagers are looking on, confused. And he says, so To make a long story short, I answered an ad in the paper. The exiles were
This is what I'm
bored.
saying. What is going on?
Makes no sense. They
Why
were
are
bored.
the exiles stuck on this island? But they're calling up the Daily News and be like, we need to place a wanted ad.
Well, they wanted to hire a hunting falcon. They would put an ad in a newspaper in New York City for a hunting falcon. It's
Well, no,
incredible.
I'm guessing in Rio, right?
No,
That
why
he was
would it be
still in
Rio?
Rio.
Why would he be still in Rio?
That's how I took it. Was like I was on vacation in Rio. I bought this falcon and I was reading the paper and I saw like in the classifieds, hey, we're looking for a hunting falcon. I was like, well, I might as well go do that.
I don't think that he bought Red Wing while he was in Rio. I think it was in Rio that he found his love of falcons.
No. Because he says, then I got all hung up on falcons. I started in Rio where I went for a vacation. The first time I saw one, I was hooked but good. Then finally I found Red Wing and I bought him out for my own. It feels like he's still
but then
there,
I finally
right?
is indicating time passes. That's
Yeah.
indicating time passes. So I think it's vague. Don't get me wrong. Like if they wanted to go back and make it be Rio, they have the room, but I don't think that that's 100% a set in stone concept here.
Okay, because that's how I took it. Was he was in Rio, he bought this falcon, and then he was like, I just spent all my money buying a falcon. Thankfully, there's this classified ad where they need a falcon.
So he hopped a freighter and went to Exile Island, and he says, when I got here, I saw what a sucker play I'd made. We cut out, but fast. And he says, the exiles don't hire workers, they just keep prisoners. And
that battle to Steve being like, this guy's an idiot. He's like, oh my God. Oh.
Jesus Christ. And so they talk about how he's going to try to get the natives to rise up. And it's like, well, how do you do weapons? And he's like, we're going to get sticks and stones if we have to. Anything is better than not fighting back. And Steve's like, hey, how about this? What if you had a costume and a funny name?
He says, he's like, you should become Batman, but with falcons, because he says, like, you need a name that'll strike fear in them.
Yeah, something will unnerve them. Yeah. And he says, Sam says, me, a costume clown? And his such a dramatic pose he has here.
He really does.
So dramatic.
But again, this is something
that's what comic books should have.
Reading this throughout this whole issue and reading this, be like, this is something that comics is missing now. Is the dramatic posing?
Oh yeah.
You know, the how to draw comics the Marvel way.
Yeah.
Is kind of gone, and that's too bad, because when like throughout this whole issue, there's like, I mean, Captain America on the couch, like there are these poses that are like, they're goofy, but in the comic they're the emotion, they push it, right? And
exactly, it's like dance. Like things have to be a little bit exaggerated to get the emotion across. And a lot of times in modern comics, people are very interested in realism, and so they wouldn't have these incredibly dramatic poses. Because like, why would Sam be posing that way to say that line? It's crazy, but it gives energy to the panel and it gives energy to the page. So, meanwhile, we cut to the exiles to remind us they're still out there, and they are hunting for the Falcon and for Captain America, aka the Red Skull. And they said the longer it takes us to find him, the worse his death will be. And then in the last panel of the comic, we cut back to the Falcon. A native is, I don't know where this island is. Like I want to say like a Haitian. Cap says Haitian, but I'm not sure this is Haiti. Like this is not clear to me where they are.
It's not clear.
And
I
don't like saying native, but I also feel like they didn't necessarily look up what people from a certain island look like. They just kind of drew like they opened like a National Geographic and like used anything that they found.
I think you're going further than they went. I think they're like, I don't know, there's some huts. And they're wearing jeans. There you go.
So the frightening outfit that he makes is a green unitard with a deep V chest made by the locals.
And like an orange trim.
An orange trim, yeah. And that is the birth of the Falcon. And that's the end of the comic. I could not tell you how surprised I was by how this comic worked out.
Yeah,
I thought I had read the first appearance of the Falcon, and I had clearly not, because this is not anything I recall.
No. The one thing I keep wondering, because I did know that his original costume was this green and orange costume, but he's got a red bird. He's got a red falcon with him.
Yeah.
And soon enough, it's not too long, I think, before he gets his red and white costume. I don't think it takes that long for him to get that one. What the hell were they thinking with this costume?
They like red and green. Those are classic comic book matching colors.
Sure, but so are red and white. And
No, I
this is
know.
this is green and orange. This isn't green and red.
No, I know. I think the thing is because Cap is red, white, and blue, and they wanted to have a different color scheme completely, like a totally different color scheme.
It's
They didn't want
ugly.
to. I don't disagree. It is
It's
very
a
much its own
terrible
thing.
costume.
It is not great. It is truly not great. I think we have one more week until Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man starts for us. I think it starts in 10 days from today, which gives us one more episode of this. Should we just read the finale, part 2 of the Falcon's first appearance?
Sure.
Wrap this story up next week?
Yeah. The Falcon fights.
Yeah, I do want to see, because this feels like we just got a tease of the Falcon.
Yeah.
So, what'd you think of this comic?
It's goofy in all the right ways, which is something I think happens a lot when we read these older comics. That goofiness that tends to be missing from comics today.
Yeah,
is in there that I enjoy, and there's a lot of story. Like, it's pretty interesting how much nothing really happens.
No, nothing happens at all.
but there's a lot of stuff going on, so
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah.
I like watching Red Skull walking around Manhattan and people be like, he's the best. He's like, I'm going to murder all these people. I like that. I thought that was fun. And him posing on the couch, and when he stops and the photographer, the paparazzi guy's like, I thought Cap hated having his picture taken. It's like, well, people change. And it's like, that's fun stuff there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I enjoyed that. Reading through it, I was like, when is the Falcon going to show up? And I was like, how is he going to show up? Because I also thought I was like, well, he's a New York guy. So I guess he's going to meet Captain America and realize that it's not really Captain America or something. And that's going to be part of the story. No, he's hanging out on Exile Island for some reason.
To be on Exile Island, yeah. He's there to bring his hunting falcon for the exiles because they're so bored.
Yeah, what are the exiles doing? I don't understand what they're doing there.
It's so funny, man. I don't know.
Because even that, the Falcon is like, Sam is like, oh, they've taken over this village. I don't think they have. Because they're hanging out very far away from what I can tell. And Sam's hanging out there, and he's causing problems for the exiles. It seems like the exiles are hanging out, and Sam just every now and again is like making his bird go attack them. And they're like, what is going on? Like,
it's the case.
Leave us alone. And then when Captain America shows up, he's like, yeah, those guys are jerks. So,
yeah, that is the case, I believe. I enjoyed it. It really helped to read the previous 4 or 5 issues.
Yeah, I imagine
it did a lot. I mean, and part of what it did a lot of is to make me realize that, again, this is a stream of consciousness story. Stan's just fucking riffing. He is just riffing along. And so when stuff makes not a lot of sense, or you're like, wait, how did we get here? That's the answer. It's because Stan just decided that was the next thing he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so that, or Gene Colan or Buscema was penciling some of the previous episodes. But I always like reading Captain America's own title because Cap has so much angst in his brain that he doesn't have in any other title. Like when he's in the Avengers, he's not like always like moping or whatever. And in the past couple of issues, Stan had Cap real bummed out, and so it was it was pretty great, because usually he's always like, I'm Captain America, I'm great. But when you have your own solo book, you get to be a big bitch, and Cap definitely did that.
I mean, that is one thing I remember a lot from the days when I would read Captain America comics, was in his own book, he was always like, my life kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And then you go to Avengers and he's like, come on, team, we can do it all. And I like that. like, oh yeah, he's not going to go in front of the Avengers and lead them and be like, I live in a really crappy apartment in Brooklyn, and I draw like a Sunday morning, like a Sunday news strip, and this sucks. I don't want to do this, because that's not very good leadership.
No. But like in a previous issue in this storyline, he had asked Sharon Carter to quit S.H.I.E.L.D. because he was worried for her safety. Because there's a bit where Sharon Carter goes and she's following Madam Hydra, and Nick Fury has sent her to follow Madam Hydra, and but because she thinks that Steve is dead, she decides that she's going to kill herself on this mission. And so she has no reason to live anymore, so she's going to go in hot on Madam Hydra. And then when Steve shows up, oh my God, you're still alive. And she's like, I hate this. The whole point of me killing off Steve Rogers was to keep you safe. I need you to quit S.H.I.E.L.D. And she goes, Steve never asked me to do that. And Steve's like, okay, I won't. but I really like that. So I like that she turned her surveillance mission into a suicide mission because she thought Steve had died.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty dark.
Do you think we'll ever see Sharon Carter in the MCU again?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if she's in the new one.
Oh, yeah?
Power Broker feels like a character that would fit somehow into this story in some way. She may not have a big role, but like I could see her being in it or being in Thunderbolts. Both of those seem like places that she might turn up.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back again next week with Captain America number 118, The Falcon Fights On, where we'll finish up the origin of the Falcon. I love the Falcon's origin as Captain America says, why don't you put on a dumb suit?
Hey, why don't you have these indiscriminate natives make you a suit?
Maybe if he is colorblind, it explains a lot about the suit.
It does. It would explain a lot. He thinks he's wearing red.
Yeah, he thinks he's wearing some really big red suit. That's right. He probably thinks the orange is blue or something. Yeah. It's so funny. All right, we'll be back again next week. Until then, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be well, but most of all, may you remain a true believer.